Hello, and welcome to Introduction to Poetry, Lists 1001. Presentation for a creative/critical response to a chosen poet's work. With instructor, Dr. J. Howard. Well, let's get started. Is everyone ready?
Yes, please.
Okay, let's begin. Hi, and welcome. Today, I have chosen two poems to analyze. Olhig, by Mark McWatt, and Medusa, by Sylvia Plath. Let's begin.
Olhig by Mark McWatt.
You think I like this stupidness? Gallivanting all night without skin, burning myself out like cane fire, to frighten the foolish? And for what? A few drops of baby blood? You think I wouldn't rather take my blood seasoned in fat? Black pudding, like everyone else? And don't even talk about the pain of salt. And having to bend these old bones down to count 1,000 grains of rice. If only babies didn't smell so nice. And if I could only stop hearing the soft, soft call of that pure blood running in new veins, singing the sweet song of life, tempting an old, dry-up woman who'd been holding her final note for years and years, afraid of the dying hum. Then again, if I didn't fly and come to that fresh pulse in the middle of the night, how would you, mother, name your ancient dread? And who to blame for the murder inside your head? Believe me, as long as it's of women giving birth, a poor old hig like me can never dead. Boo.
Welcome back. Did you enjoy the poem? Okay, lovely. Now, we are on to the next one. Medusa, by Sylvia Plath. Sit back and relax.
Medusa by Sylvia Plath.
Off that landspit, of stony mouth plugs, eyes rolled, by white sticks, ears cupping the seas, and coherences, you house, your unnerving head, god ball, lens of mercies, your stooges, plying their wild cells, in my keel's shadow, pushing by like hearts, red stigmata, at the very center, riding the riptide, to the nearest point of departure. Dragging their Jesus hair. Did I escape, I wonder? My mind wins to you. Old barnacled umbilicus, Atlantic cable, keeping itself, it seems, in a state of miraculous repair. In any case, you are always there, tremulous breath, at the end of my line, curve of water upleaping to my water rod, dazzling and grateful, touching and sucking. I didn't call you. I didn't call you at all. Nevertheless, you steamed to me over the sea, fat and red, a placenta. Paralyzing the kicking lovers. Cobra light. Squeezing the breath from the blood bells of the fuchsia. I could draw no breath, dead, and money, less. Overexposed, like an X-ray. Who do you think you are? A communion wafer. Blubbery, Mary? I shall take no bite of your body, bottle in which I live. Ghastly Vatican. I am sick to death of hot salt. Green as eunuchs, your wishes. Hiss at my sins. Off, eerie tentacle. There is nothing between us. Welcome back once again. Now, I'll be doing a comparative analysis between the two poems. Follow me. So, both titles of the two poems paints a picture in your head about folklore and mystics.
What type of folklore is Olhig?
A Guyanese-based folklore. The Olhig, or hag, was, and still remains part of Guyana's folklore. She is a sort of the Guyanese form of a vampire who feeds on babies or young children, and she is capable of discarding her skin.
Oh. And is Medusa a Greek mythology?
Originally, yes, Medusa is a Greek mythology. But Sylvia Plath didn't interpret it that way.
Oh, so how did she intend it?
She intended it to represent a mother, and not a Greek mythology.
So the poem is a dramatic monologue, written in the voice of Medusa, a mythical figure with venomous snakes for hair, and whose stare turns people to stone.
Does anyone know who is Mark McWatt?
Yes. Mark McWatt was born in Georgetown, Guyana, on the 29th of September 1947. In 1966, he attended the University of Toronto, where McWatt took special courses in English and literature. Mark was also enrolled at the University of Leeds to do a Ph.D. in English. However, he is currently the professor of West Indian literature and head of the Department of Language, Linguistics and Literature at the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill Campus, Barbados.
Okay, very good. However, Mark McWatt is now retired at the time of this video being made. Okay. And who was Sylvia Plath?
Sylvia was born in 1932 to middle-class parents in Jamaica Plain, Massachusetts, in the United States of America. Sylvia Plath published her first poem at the age of 8. A sensitive person who tended to be a bit of a perfectionist. She was what many would consider a model daughter, a popular student, and a straight A student, always winning the best prizes. Sylvia won a scholarship to Smith College in 1950, and even then she had an enviable list of publications. While at Smith, Plath wrote over 400 poems. Medusa is from her famous works. Ariel. However, Sylvia Plath committed suicide in 1963.
That's correct. Okay, now let's give someone else a chance to answer. But thank you, Erin. My next question is for you, Peter. What is a literary device? And name one literary device from both poems.
Okay, well, a literary device is a tool used by writers to hint at larger themes, ideas, and meaning in a story or piece of writing. In verse line 3, stanza 1 of Olhig, burning myself out like Cain, fire. It's a simile. A simile is when you make a comparison between two or more things, using like or as. The Olhig is a shape-shifting creature of folklore that appears in the form of a solitary old woman by day, and during the night she strips off her wrinkled skin and transform into a ball of fire. As a fireball, she can fly across the dark sky in search of an unsuspecting victim. Furthermore, in Medusa, verse line 1, 2, 3, and 4, off that land spit of stony mouth plugs, eyes rolled by white sticks, ears cupping the seas incoherences, you house your unnerving head god ball. The Medusa is described as a collection of body parts, mouth, eyes, ears, and head. This technique is called a synecdoche, in which smaller parts represent a larger whole. In this case, it is alluding to the head of the Medusa, just like the Greek mythology.
The other synecdoches mentioned in verse lines 15 and 27 are umbilicus and placenta.
And when I saw the word placenta, that's when I realized that the persona was talking about a woman, especially a mother, because placentas are discharged after giving birth, either naturally or with some help from modern medication, and the body parts mentioned above as a synecdoche. It refers to a mother and child, with the mother being the head of the household.
Yes, please. Okay, can anyone tell me the structure of the two poems? And what does structure means?
Structure of a poem refers to the way it is organized and the relationship between its different parts.
Okay,
In Old Hig, it does not follow any rhyme scheme. Therefore, it is a free verse poem. There are 3 stanzas, with the first stanza having 11 lines, the second stanza having 8 lines, and the last stanza having 9 lines.
okay, good. And what is a stanza?
A stanza is a group of lines within a poem, usually separated from other stanzas by an indent or a blank line. However, in Medusa, there are 6 stanzas, with the first stanza having 11 verse lines. The second and 6th stanza has 6 lines each. The third stanza has 10 lines. The 4th and 5th stanza has 5 verse lines, respectively. The stanzas are of irregular length, and there is no regular rhyme scheme, so I'll say it's a free verse poem as well. Likewise, both poems are telling a story. There are both narrative poems
Or dramatic monologues. Okay, what's the tone of the poems?
Okay, a tone of a poem is the poet's attitude towards the poem's speaker, reader, and subject matter as interpreted by the reader. In Old Hig, the persona is slightly bitter. However, the speaker accepts the cycle of its life and understands it could not change. Stanza 3, verse line 27 and 28, as long as it have women giving birth, a poor old hig like me could never dead.
Lovely. However, what is a verse line? Earlier, Erin had explained what a stanza was. So I'll like to know, what's a verse line as well?
Oh, well, a verse line represents any grouping of lines in a poetic composition, with groupings, traditionally, having been referred to as stanzas. On the other hand, in Medusa, the persona develops a casual detached tone, right from the beginning of the poem, and to the end of the poem. In stanza 1, verse line 10 and 11, riding the rip tide to the nearest point of departure, and in stanza 6, verse line 43, there is nothing between us. This shows the detachment of mother and child.
Okay. And what's the definition of form in poetry?
Well, form is the form of a poem, referring to its type or style.
Very good. So, can you tell me, what is a sound effect? And list one sound effect from both poems.
Well, a sound effect, also known as a sound device, refers to melody, such as rhyme, alliteration, assonance, and consonance. In Old Hig, stanza 2, verse line 16 and 14, singing the sweet song of life, hearing the soft, soft call. The sound effect, alliteration, is used here. Alliteration is the repetition of the same sound at the start of a series of words in succession, whose purpose is to provide an audible pulse that gives a piece of writing a sound.
Singing the sweet song of life.
In the same way, Medusa, stanza 4, verse line 31 and 32, assonance as in breath, dead, and moneyless. Likewise, stanza 4, verse line 30, consonance is displayed in blood and bells. A consonance is the repetition of the same consonant sounds in a line of a text. The Latin consonantum, meaning agreeing in sound. Consonance appears anywhere, but usually at the middle or end of words, or the end of the stressed syllable.
And assonance is what?
Assonance is the repetition of sound of a vowel or diphthong in non-rhyming, stressed syllables, close enough to each other for the echo to be discernible. The use of assonance throughout the poem creates the sound of despair.
Yes, it does. Okay, what is diction?
Diction is the use of language, and if there is specific jargon, colloquialism, punctuation, and capitalization.
Okay, and can you tell me about the diction for one of the poems?
Yes, of course. In Old Hig, the diction being used is a Guyanese Creole, so it is colloquial diction.
Yes, it is.
And Guyana is located in South America.
However, their customs and norms are very Caribbean-like. But you are right. Guyana is in South America.
Furthermore, colloquial diction, colloquial words or expressions are informal in nature, and generally represent a certain region or time. Gallivanting and black pudding are examples of colloquial expressions in Old Hig. Colloquialisms add color and realism to writing.
Okay. Can you give me a definition of theme in poetry?
A theme is the message an author wants to communicate through the piece. In Old Hig, the themes are supernatural, folklore, death,
Women in society, gender appearance versus reality, man versus self.
On the other hand, the themes such as jealousy, feminine, dignity, and doubtfulness are displayed throughout Medusa.
Okay, thank you. Does someone want to name any of the other literary device in both of the poems?
Old Hig and Medusa have repetition in it. Repetition is a literary device that involves using the same word or phrase over and over again in a piece of writing or speech. In Old Hig, stanza 1, verse line 1 and 6, you think I like this stupidness, you think I wouldn't rather. The Old Hig is really annoyed that she has to waste her energy.
Similarly, stupidness. This is a Caribbean phrase that highlights frustration or scorn. Therefore, it highlights the Old Hig's frustration with her lack of self-control.
However, in Medusa, stanza 3, verse line 23 and 24, I didn't call you at all. These are examples of repetition. The repetition of I didn't call you highlights the anger in the tone of the persona's voice. The speaker wants to be alone.
More or less.
Likewise, both poems use rhetorical questions throughout their work.
Yes, they did. What is a rhetorical question? What does it mean in poetry?
Well, a rhetorical question is a question posed to provoke thought, rather than to generate an answer. In Medusa, stanza 5, verse line 35, who do you think you are? A communion wafer. Blubbery Mary? The speakers both ask rhetorical questions.
However,
Medusa has biblical references in these rhetorical questions, which is alluding to the Catholic religion. First Communion is practiced by Catholics, deeming themselves of being unworthy, then eating the bread as a representation of the body of Christ, and drinking wine to represent the blood of Christ. Similarly, the poetic voice in Medusa seems to retain conflicting emotions surrounding her mother. The persona chose to paint the mother as a martyr through repeated allusions to Christian symbols that portray her as Christ-like, being referred to as a God ball with Jesus hair, a communion wafer, and Blubbery Mary.
more or less.
In addition, Old Hig, stanza 1, verse line 5, and for what? A few drops of baby blood? Are rhetorical questions. This highlights the fact that the Old Hig is annoyed that she has to expend so much energy to obtain a few drops of baby blood.
Well, thank you guys for participating in my creative/critical analysis. I hope that it was educational. And thanks for watching.